Welcome to the wonderful world of extended school year services. Your presenters for today will be myself, Natalie Alvarez. I graduated from Florida State University and earned a Bachelor of Science in Psychology degree in August of 2012. I have been with Disability Rights Florida since July 2013, and I started as an advocacy specialist on the intake team. In June of 2015, I became an advocate investigator at the agency on the Advocacy, Education, and Outreach team, and my work focuses on special education cases, specifically on the development and implementation of IEPs, with the emphasis on individuals with behavioral challenges and disciplinary issues.
My name is Lauren Eversole. I am a senior staff attorney with Disability Rights Florida. I work on the Advocacy, Education, and Outreach team, where I primarily advocate for the rights of children and adults with disabilities under the IDEA, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and the ADA. I've been with Disability Rights Florida for approximately 4 years, going on 5. I'm licensed in Florida and North Carolina. I have a background in history and also a social work. I got my law degree from Charleston School of Law. I've done several internships in the public interest field, including the Charleston County Public Defender's Office and Legal Aid of North Carolina. This position at Disability Rights Florida is the perfect combination of my legal and social work backgrounds, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to advocate on behalf of individuals with disabilities. And we will get right into Disability Rights Florida and who we are and what we do. Disability Rights Florida is the state's protection and advocacy agency. Our funding, responsibility, and authority comes under 8 federal programs, which are designed to protect and advocate for the rights of Floridians with disabilities. We are a not-for-profit corporation that has been around since 1987. We have offices in Tallahassee, Gainesville, Tampa, and Hollywood, as well as other satellite offices throughout Florida. Disability Rights Florida's mission is to advance the quality of life, dignity, equality, self-determination, and freedom of choice of persons with disabilities through collaboration, education, advocacy, as well as legal and legislative strategies.
Topics we will cover are: what is ESY or Extended School Year Services? Why is ESY offered? When is ESY eligibility considered? Where and when is ESY provided? Who is eligible for ESY? How is an ESY program created? And how long is ESY? The legal authority for ESY can be found under the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, also known as the IDEA, and their regulations, the Florida Department of Education Technical Assistant Papers and Guidance, as well as the State Board of Education rules. What is ESY? ESY is special education and related services that are provided to a child with a disability beyond the normal school year of the public agency in accordance with the child's IEP and at no cost to the parent of the child. That can be found under 34 CFR State Statute 300.106 Section B. ESY is a service necessary to ensure a student is receiving a free, appropriate public education. ESY can be a school-based program, on-the-job support, or services contracted through the community or other agencies. What ESY is not is a summer school or reading camp or any other program available to general education peers, although if necessary, these other programs could become a part of a student's ESY program. To elaborate on that, it's not to say that a student cannot have a specific ESY program designed for them with incorporating a reading camp or some other resource or program that the district is offering to other students in the district. ESY is not childcare or respite care and is not intended to maximize educational opportunity or potential growth. The sole purpose of ESY is to prevent regression and maintain the current skills that the student has. ESY and related services. Related services can be a part of an ESY program. The only showing required is that the service is needed to assist a child with a disability to benefit from special education being provided in extended school year programs. Transportation is a related service and is available during ESY if it is necessary for a child with a disability to benefit from special education. An example of related services can be language therapy, occupational therapy, as well as transportation. If in order for the student to have access to ESY, they're going to need some form of transportation to get them to ESY, then transportation would be a related services that can be provided by the district to the student. If the student has communication needs and one of the areas that the IEP team has determined that they need to continue working on during ESY would be the area of communication. Let's say they have communication goals, but the individual that works on this goal is a language therapist, then they would need language therapy. Language therapy would then be a related services that could be offered to the student as well as deemed necessary by the IEP team.
Why is ESY offered? ESY is offered to ensure FAPE. FAPE stands for Free Appropriate Public Education. FAPE is special education and related services which have been provided at public expense, under public supervision and direction, and without charge, meaning free, and which are provided in conformity with the individual education program. The IDEA requires states receiving federal funds to ensure that ESY services are available as necessary to provide a free, appropriate public education. ESY and FAPE. ESY services must be provided if the services are necessary for the provision of FAPE. ESY services may not be limited to particular categories of disability or exceptionality. So for instance, if you're in an IEP meeting for a student who has specific learning disability and the team is discussing ESY and the district tells you, your child doesn't qualify for ESY because ESY is only for students with intellectual disabilities, that's wrong. Again, ESY services may not be limited to particular categories of disability or exceptionality. Services may not be unilaterally limited in type, amount, or duration. It is a team decision what ESY will look like for your child. When is ESY eligibility considered? The need for ESY is considered at least annually. The annual ESY discussion should take place in the spring each year and should be made early enough for the family to exercise due process rights if they disagree with the team's decision. ESY eligibility is an IEP team decision and must not be predetermined or made outside of an IEP team meeting. Often we have seen IEP teams going ahead and checking the eligibility criteria as no, glossing over the ESY section stating that the student is not eligible for ESY at this time. If that happens to you, just politely and respectfully ask, please, let's review ESY eligibility as a team and discuss it as a team. The question, or the main question to ask is, does the student require ESY services in order to receive FAPE during the year or over time? Where and when is ESY provided? Where does ESY take place? Well, it depends on the individual student's need. ESY can be provided at a designated school or at an alternate location decided by the IEP team. ESY and LRE. LRE stands for Least Restrictive Environment. The requirement that a student can be educated in the least restrictive environment still applies, but LRE for ESY may be different than LRE for the regular school year. A district is not required to create a program solely to provide LRE, but it may be necessary to provide services in alternative settings if the most appropriate setting for the student is not available within the existing program. When does ESY take place? It depends on the individual need of the student. ESY typically takes place during the summer months. ESY could also take place during any school break or even during the school term in addition to the regular school day, depending on what the individual student needs to receive their free appropriate public education. Who is eligible for ESY?
Determining the need for ESY. ESY is only offered to students receiving Exceptional Student Education or ESE services and have an IEP. The IDEA states that each public agency must ensure that extended school year services are available as necessary to provide FAPE, which is also free appropriate public education, and the need for ESY services must be determined on an individual basis. The United States Department of Education has left it to the states to determine the specific analysis IEP teams should use when determining whether students are eligible for ESY services. Factors for consideration in the Florida Administrative Code. The Florida Administrative Code highlights the following as factors to consider: whether there is a likelihood that significant regression will occur in critical life skills related to the following areas: academic or for pre-kindergarten children with disabilities, developmentally appropriate pre-academic skills, communication, independent functioning and self-sufficiency, and social or emotional development or behavior. 2. Whether the student is at a crucial stage in the development of a critical life skill or an emerging skill, and a lapse in services would substantially jeopardize the student's chances of learning that skill. For example, the data indicates that the student is starting to show progress on a goal or skill within their IEP, but they have not yet mastered it, and a lapse in services without ESY would result in regression and the student losing what progress they had previously made. 3. Whether the nature or severity of the student's disability is such that the student would be unlikely to benefit from their education without the provision of ESY services. And 4. Extenuating circumstances pertinent to the student's current situation that indicate the likelihood that FAPE would not be provided without ESE services. Examples include a student who had recently obtained paid supported employment and requires a job coach in order to be successful, a student who requires services in order to remain in his or her existing least restrictive environment and prevent movement to a more restrictive setting, and a student whose frequent health-related absences have significantly impeded progress on their goals related to critical life skills. Determining the need for ESY. The Florida Department of Education outlined a process for school-based teams to use when determining the need for ESY services. Under this guidance, the school district must consider at least 7 factors in determining whether ESY is necessary to provide FAPE to a student. DOE stated that no single criterion has been identified as a determining factor for ESY services, and ESY services cannot be limited by the use of a formula or single measure. Florida DOE's 7 listed criteria are regression and recoupment, critical point of instruction, emerging skills, nature of severity of disability, interfering behaviors, rate of progress, and special circumstances such as transitioning from school to work. The appropriate data to review includes, but not limited to, pattern of regression after past breaks in service. This is an example of your Christmas breaks or winter breaks, spring breaks, and even summer, pre and post tests, before and after breaks, progress on annual goals, point sheets, report cards, and teacher-made checklists. More appropriate data to review items can be work samples, therapy logs, anecdotal records from home and school, probes or running records, records, frequent charts, referrals, disciplinary files, and other documentation related to extenuating circumstances. When is a student eligible for ESY services? A student is eligible when the student is unable to receive a reasonable level of benefit from the regular school year without ESY services, when the targeted skill represents a barrier to continuous progress and self-sufficiency. IEP teams may not limit the provision of ESY services to a certain type of disability, such as ESY is only for those who are medically fragile, or ESY is only for those students who are eligible for ESE services under the autism eligibility criteria. It is offered to all students receiving ESE services, regardless of their eligibility criteria or disability, and should not discourage parents from sending a student to ESY if it is determined that the student requires ESY services in order to receive FAPE. If there was data to support at least one of the Florida DOE's 7 listed criteria we went over before, then the student is eligible for ESY services. They do not need to meet all 7 criteria.
How is an ESY program created? The Florida Department of Education states that the IEP team is responsible for determining the initiation, duration, and frequency of ESY services, which may be provided for all or part of scheduled school breaks, depending on the unique need of the individual student. ESY services cannot be limited by the use of a formula or a single measure. It is important for the IEP team to consider a variety of factors. ESY programs should be appropriately tailored to meet the needs of the individual child. The IEP team must consider the student's needs and the services necessary to provide FAPE. Districts cannot limit ESY services to particular categories of disabilities and cannot limit the type, amount, or duration of those services unilaterally. It is a team discussion. Your input as a parent is important, and it is important to discuss as a team what ESY will look like for your child. It is an individualized decision.
How long is ESY? Length and duration of ESY. The IEP team is responsible for determining the initiation, duration, and frequency of ESY services. The number of weeks, days per week, and minutes per day should be based on the student's individual need. The school district may not limit the type, amount, or duration of ESY services. Many school districts already have a selected time frame for ESY. Most of the time it's for the month of June, and as that may be enough time and sufficient ESY services for a student, some students may need longer ESY period, and that is what the IEP team should be discussing and determining what the student needs based on the data that is available for the team to review and consider. Common misconceptions. Some common misconceptions are ESY services cannot be discussed by the team because the district is not yet sure what services will be available during ESY. Remember, this is a team decision. It is recommended that the IEP team get together to discuss ESY eligibility at least once a school year, preferably in the spring, so that you guys have enough data to review to determine whether or not there's any one of those 7 criteria that DOE has laid out to support whether or not they are eligible for services, and also that determination of ESY services cannot be made until the district has confirmed what staff are available to provide ESY services during the summer. Again, it's an IEP team decision. The team, once they have determined that a student is eligible for extended school year services, the team is then also to determine what services the student needs, and the ESY program is tailored to meet those needs. That is, there's no bearing on who is available to provide them. Other misconceptions are, I don't know what this question is asking. I'm going to check no. If you don't know, then you guys should have an open conversation to try to figure it out and brainstorm. Really rely on the data. The data is going to give you the information to guide your decision. A student cannot receive ESY services and partake in course recovery. The other students in ESY program have much more significant disability. This goes back to where we were discussing before. You cannot limit ESY for a certain group of students or a certain disability, and ESY is only offered to students with significant cognitive disabilities. Again, that piggybacks on the rationale before. You have to offer it to all students who are ESE students. As long as they meet one of the 7 eligibility criteria, then they are eligible to receive extended school year services, regardless of their disability or their eligibility criteria, as long as they meet eligibility. Examples. Example A. The student demonstrates regression on IEP goals during breaks from school, including long weekends, Thanksgiving, winter, spring, and summer break. After receiving ESY services during the summer and during the school year, the student is showing significant progress on all IEP goals. Please note that as ESY services are typically provided over the summer, it can also be provided during long weekends and or any holiday breaks that fall within the average school year. Students' reading, writing, and math skills are at a critical emerging level. The student requires a strict routine and continuous exposure to material to retain information and show academic growth. And to provide the student with the necessary ESY services to prevent regression and maintain their skills, the student requires 90 minutes of ESY weekly during the long weekends and district-approved holiday breaks during the school year in order to receive FAPE. So this particular student received 90 minutes of ESY instruction or services during those either long weekends or the Thanksgiving, winter, and spring break. And then during the summer, the ESY program for this student is that they required 120 minutes of ESY weekly during the whole summer break in order to receive FAPE. So this student went beyond the typical 4-week time frame that districts preliminary already set aside for ESY services. The student needed beyond that. So what the student was receiving was 120 minutes of ESY instruction or services for the duration of the summer.
Example B. The team completed the determination of need worksheet and reviewed academic data. The student needs many reminders and redirection at home and at school. Based on the need for academic instruction, the teacher proposed that the student attend an existing remediation summer camp with second grade curriculum. Mom was concerned that the student would shut down in this environment. The team discussed other options that would provide the student with academic instruction in an environment that would encourage continued academic growth. The student will receive 7 weeks of ESY services covering reading and math, and this instruction will take place 2 days per week for 2.5 hours of services. The parent and the school can determine where this academic instruction will take place. For instance, it could be in the home, it could be at the local library, it could be at the library at school or a quiet room at the school. It's up to the parent and the school to, get together and come up with the best plan for the student. Example C. The data showed that during breaks or long weekends, the student would regress and the student was making some progress in both math and reading. ESY was set up with a 2-week break in the middle of it, but because the data illustrated the student regressed during long breaks and long weekends, the team discussed options. The student will now get 90 minutes a day of tutoring in the areas of reading and math, along with related services, at home 4 days per week during the 2-week break in the middle of ESY. Resources available to you. This slide provides several links to websites that will provide you with access to information and documents that will help you prepare for your upcoming ESY meeting for your child. Here are some additional websites that may be helpful, including our website, disabilityrightsflorida.org. All 3 of these websites are very informational and cover a wide variety of ESE topics, including ESY. And of course, you can contact us if you have any additional questions or if you are experiencing issues with your child and his or her ESC services or any other disability related services. You can call us at our toll-free number 1-800-342-0823, or you can visit our website at disabilityrightsflorida.org and request assistance online.